Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a major winter storm which is currently in parts of the Rockies. It's going to dump another couple feet of snowfall over parts of Wyoming and Colorado before exiting out to parts of the Midwest and the Northern Plains. It'll then head into the Great Lakes and then finally into the Northeast where a bit of light snow is possible. We're going to be breaking down when and what you should be expecting with this winter storm, and then we're going to be talking about the severe threat for this week and then even into early next week, where we already have a 30% chance of severe weather on the day 4 outlook. So we already have a fairly high chance of some severe weather in some of these areas in the southeast and the south central states. We're going to be covering all of that and more in today's video. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. It is quite active today. We have some winter weather advisories in effect for parts of northern California as well as for southwestern Oregon. We have winter storm warnings in effect also for northern California. There we have some freeze warnings and some frost advisories also for northwestern California. We have wind advisories in effect for parts of the southwest, a little bit of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas as well. In that golden shade is where we have those high wind warnings in place. We have more wind advisories back through into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri, as well as for parts of the Northeast as well. We have winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, and into South Dakota, with another area of warnings up for parts of Minnesota, Iowa, and into South Dakota. We have winter weather advisories in the purple, which stretches that entire area, and then we have blizzard warnings in the red for parts of South Dakota, western Nebraska, and also into southeastern Wyoming. We have flood watches and flood warnings in effect for southern Missouri and southern Kansas, as well as some red flag warnings in effect for parts of Texas and New Mexico, as well as for parts of the coastal Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, where we also have some elevated fire risk, and then we also have some wind chill advisories in effect for the Adirondacks as well as for parts of northern Maine and New Hampshire, and other than that we don't have many other watches or warnings currently in place. So here's what the storm reports look like from yesterday, because yesterday we had a bit of a tornado outbreak over this same area over the central panhandle of Texas there. The highest wind gust report was 87 miles per hour in the panhandle of Texas, and the highest hail report was 2.75 inches of hail. We had, I believe, over 20 tornado warnings, 11 reported tornadoes, and we had over 18 reports of hail and wind as well. So we had a quite active day in terms of severe weather yesterday. It started in the morning, but it really started to ramp up as we headed into the early afternoon, into the evening hours. That's when we got most of our tornadoes and tornado warnings up. So it was a very, very interesting day, and hopefully everybody was safe from that event. I don't think there were any reports of any fatalities or casualties, luckily. So hopefully there aren't any that are discovered, but it looks like nobody really was injured during that event, but there was some damage, especially to livestock and also to a couple buildings in the panhandle of Texas there from yesterday's event. Here's what the European model is showing for this winter storm, and you can see the severe weather back throughout parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, in that area right there. And that's what moved through the panhandle of Texas. It originally started right back through New Mexico, headed eastward, and as it continued to head further to the east, it eventually formed sort of a line of storms, and that's what we're currently seeing as of right now. We have snow back through parts of the Rockies and the High Plains, and that's going to be heading further to the east. There's one really important thing, especially if you live in the Great Lakes or the Northeast, that you really want to pay attention to. It's this area of high pressure that's right in here. This is going to be what's supplying the cold air. Today is going to be a fairly cold day. So is much of this week and the upcoming week as well. That's because of this high pressure in place that's over parts of central Ontario, Canada. That's going to be heading further to the east, and it's going to kind of squeeze itself somewhat like this into parts of the Northeast. So as the system is moving eastward, it has nowhere to go. It can't go to the north, can't go to the south, and it's just going to have to continue to ram through into the eastern United States, but it's going to go into an area of high pressure that's not only going to weaken it, but also bring maybe a little bit of snow while that system is being weakened. So definitely an interesting setup. There are a lot of dynamics, especially with this winter storm. Now, let's go to the next frame here, and you can see that by Monday in the morning, so tomorrow morning, we're looking at moderate to heavy snowfall back through parts of the Dakotas, especially South Dakota, through Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota. It looks like we could see some amounts over 6 inches in some of these areas right here, and we're going to show you what some of the snow totals from this event look like. You can see how the high pressure is already getting squashed in between two different storms. We have one storm, which I'll highlight in orange right back through here, and then we have another storm which I'll do in red, and that's the storm that we're going to be talking about right through here. So we have two low pressures on either side of the high pressure, and that's just basically going to squeeze it into place. So it's going to squeeze further to the south. It's going to kind of be suppressed into parts of the northeast and the mid-Atlantic, and that's what's going to really provide a bit of a squash of cold air for some of these areas, and that's how you're going to get a little bit of that snow. You can see the heavy snow starts to spread further to the east by Monday in the early afternoon. This would be, I believe, around 1 p.m. Central Time. On Monday, we're dealing with some heavy to moderate snowfall back through parts of eastern Iowa, southern Minnesota, a little bit of South Dakota, and even a little bit of northern Illinois by this point. The GFS has this a lot colder, well, not a lot, but fairly colder. It does put a lot more snow into areas like Chicago that the European model does not. So there are some major metro areas that, if one or the other models is correct, could see some big snow totals, but you're going to have we're gonna have to really see which model ends up being correct. There's still a lot of discrepancies between both of the models. Here would be by Monday night. You can see that the high pressure is very much in place for parts of the northeast. There's no chance of this pulling away further to the north by this point. You can sort of see that storm on the right hand side of your screen. It's kind of getting cut off, but you can see that we do have some of the remaining isobars from that low pressure out there in the Atlantic, and then we have that other storm back through parts of the Central Plains. That's going to be again squashing this high pressure into place, and that's what's going to allow that cold air into the East Coast, and that's eventually what's going to lead to what could be a light snow event for those areas. So this would be by Tuesday early in the morning. And then continuing through the morning hours, even into the early afternoon. It doesn't look too impressive. This is by Tuesday early afternoon. So still, we're not dealing with too much, maybe some light rain or snow. This is when the storm starts to reform off the North Carolina coast right over here. And as that heads further to the north and to the east, that's where you might be able to pick up maybe 1 or 2 inches of snowfall. So this would be by Tuesday night into Wednesday early in the morning. And then here's by Wednesday morning, as the sun's already gone up by this point. We're dealing with snow, fairly light snow for parts of southern New England, a little bit of upstate New York as well, and then that system would move out to the east and pretty much wrap up after that. So here's what your snowfall totals look like for this event. You can see that we have much heavier amounts back through parts of the Rockies and also into parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, over 20 inches in some of these areas. And then you move back through Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, even into parts of Illinois and parts of Wisconsin as well. That's where we're looking at a 4 to 8 inch event for the most part. Localized areas could get 8+ inches of snowfall, probably 8 to 10 inches of snowfall. And watch for mainly this area right here, because this is where the GFS has much more snowfall. So I'm going to play what the GFS is showing right here, and you can see how Chicago just went from a 2 to about a 4-inch amount. Southern Iowa went from about less than an inch, not even any snowfall, to about 3 or 4 inches of snowfall. So there are some big differences with this, and you can even see that for parts of southern Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, central Iowa, they're now seeing 6+ inches. They weren't seeing that much snowfall before. So there are a lot of things that are going to kind of shift around here, and there is still time for this to shift a little bit more, but luckily the models are narrowing down onto a specific idea, and there's just the fine details that we have to figure out. Let's start talking about the severe weather risk for parts of the southern United States, and let's start off with today. We don't have too much of a severe weather risk. We have a bit of severe weather potentially for parts of Kansas, and then also some areas near Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. If we move on to tomorrow, which would be Monday, we're looking at a general thunderstorm risk for parts of the Tennessee Valley, so nothing too major, and we're not expecting anything. Definitely, no major tornadoes, no hail really expected for tomorrow. So this is just going to be a fairly minor pop-up thunderstorm type of event. Here to be your day 3 outlook. This is when the next storm starts to approach out of the southern Rockies, and with that, it brings in a lot of warm Gulf air, and that's going to be pushing up further to the north, and that's what's going to allow the severe weather event to really take place. So we have a marginal risk in place for parts of the Central Plains and the Southern Plains, and then for parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas, we have a slight risk in place. So this would be for Tuesday. Here would be for Wednesday, and this is their day 4 outlook. And again, they rarely put out the 30% chance or that orange risk on their day 4 through 8 outlook. That's equivalent to an enhanced risk on their days 1 through 3 outlook. So it is a fairly big risk. With this severe weather event, I would be really torn between whether they would put a moderate risk up. I think they might, depending on what the models and when the short range models actually come out, what they're also showing. But this is probably an enhanced or moderate risk type of event. We'll definitely have to continue to watch this and see what the Storm Prediction Center does with this, but we have that 15% chance in the yellow. Even if you're just in the yellow, that's a fairly decent shot of severe weather for their day 4 outlook, and that would be equivalent to a slight risk. And then you have that enhanced risk or a 30% chance in effect for parts of Alabama, Mississippi, pretty much the entire state of Mississippi, a little bit of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee as well. So this would be for Thursday, and they even have a 15% chance on their day 5 outlook, and that stretches for parts of the coastal southeast, so areas that are basically within 100 miles of the coast along the southeast coast is where that 15% chance or slight risk is up on their day 5 outlook, which would be for Thursday. And again, that's for parts of eastern North Carolina, eastern South Carolina, southern Georgia, and northern Florida there. So that's basically going to wrap it up for your severe weather risk. We definitely have a fairly high risk, I would say, especially anywhere that's from this area. And in this area, I think you have a fairly good risk of seeing some severe weather over the next couple of days. We're going to continue to cover that for you guys, but that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.